At the end of the Second World War, Adolf Hitler was holed up inside of his bunker in Berlin. The Soviet Red Army had encircled the German city, and it was realised by the dictator of Nazi Germany that the war was lost for him. He decided to end his life inside of the bunker, and after a gunshot was heard coming from his office, the body of Hitler was taken out of the bunker into the garden of the Reich Chancellery. He was wrapped in a rug and was then placed inside of a bomb crater, whilst a small funeral took place. The men who followed the body up the stairs and would oversee the cremation of his remains were Martin Bormann, Otto Genscher, Heinz Linger, Joseph Goebbels, Erich Kempka, Peter Hergel, Ivo Linloff and Hans Reiser. A number of these were Hitler's private staff and those who remained very loyal to him. The body was placed in a bomb crater and then it was covered in petrol to try and ignite it, but this at first did not work. Linger then went into the bunker and came back with paper, which Bormann then lit and threw onto the body. This worked, and the group then all raised their arms, giving the Hitler salute standing just inside of the bunker's doorway, as the remains of the Nazi dictator were engulfed in flames. But inside of New Zealand during the Second World War, there had been a coffin built for Hitler. However, it had a very, very different purpose to what you would expect of it. Join us today as we look at the strange coffin of Adolf Hitler, and remember to support our channel. Please make sure to subscribe. The Soviets would come across the remains of Hitler inside the Reich Chancellery Garden in the early hours of the 2nd of May 1945. They found Generals Krebs and Burgdorf inside the bunker dead. They found the ashes of Hitler and a few fragments of charred bone inside of a bomb crater. A Nazi official, after more petrol had been added, raked the ashes into a bomb crater, and following this, any remains would then end up in the possession of Stalin. There was no coffin for Hitler, and he was just burned unceremoniously inside of a garden at the end of the day, and he was not given a proper funeral, just a send-off from his loyal friends and Nazis, who gave him one final Hitler salute. But as mentioned in New Zealand, there was a man who crafted a coffin for Hitler, and this was actually used to aid the war effort of his enemies. The National Army Museum, Te Matatoa in New Zealand, can claim to have Hitler's coffin amongst its collection, but it's not what you would expect. The coffin of Hitler in its possession is a small one, which is decorated with swastikas and also an effigy and image of Hitler inside. It was made by James Alexander Shute and was part of his fundraising efforts in New Zealand during the war. Shute lived in a small town named Farley, and he had a humble life where he owned a bicycle and lawnmower store. He was a man who was unable to serve in the armed forces in World War II, as he had a prior medical condition, but he wanted to contribute to the war effort in his own way. He did this through fundraising, and he and his wife started their own music hall band, and they performed fundraising concerts across the local county. But Alec also built the small coffin of Hitler, complete with the deceased Nazi leader inside. He then took the coffin around with him, and he invited people to come and pay a penny or donate to the war effort, and to literally put a nail in Hitler's coffin and to put money inside of it. It was a striking image inside of the music halls, and people would then throw their money inside. Alec later became an artist where he drew many cartoons which were produced and published inside of newspapers. He would donate all of the money he made from the concerts to the war effort. However, he and his wife did not have any children, so they passed the coffin of Hitler onto their neighbour, who was at the time 13 years old. Whilst he helped Nancy, Alec's wife, clean an old caravan, he came across it and was fascinated by it. The coffin was then purchased 25 years later from the neighbour by the National Army Museum, and today it's still in their collection, and it offers an interesting story of communities coming together miles away from the conflict of the Second World War to do their bit. There is also another coffin of Hitler which is very small, which exists, and it's believed that this was made by an S.G. Ellingham in 1939. This specific small coffin is tiny, and it has on top of it a swastika, and also along the side of it has a plate saying Adolf the Painter. Inside, when it's opened, it says, "The Only Peace," and it contains a mock-up image of an effigy of Hitler dead, along with a sword, pistol and axe. It's exquisitely decorated, and was probably a piece of, in a sense, trench artwork, or artwork made by a soldier during the war. But these items are very interesting, and they show you the animosity that soldiers and people had towards Hitler during World War II. The coffins of Hitler were used in different ways, and they were of course not the real coffin that contained his remains. Interestingly, the coffins of the high-ranking Nazis found dead inside or around the bunker were actually wooden crates which were Soviet and once held weapons or ammunition. There would be a significant degree of exhumation of these officials, such as Joseph Goebbels, Magda Goebbels and General Hans Krebs, in the decades after the war. But Hitler would never have a coffin, and it's likely that his remains today are encased in something. There's been some debate whether the remains of Hitler were burned alongside those mentioned who were exhumed, and that these ashes may have been scattered in the Ala River. Hitler's jaw today is held in the Russian FSB archives, and the fragment of his skull which was recovered is held in the state archives, but everything else of him was burned, meaning there was no need for a coffin. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.